But for me, I'm definitely picking Arizona State to come out on top over A&M. McNeese State, LSU. They just announced Brandon Harris as their quarterback for the season. LSU is ranked 14th in the country to start the season. Again, some people are actually picking LSU to get to the college football playoffs. I'll tell you right now, that's not me. I'm probably not going to be one of them. It's more so, again, their defense is always talented year in and year out. They always have guys that are going to rotate out to the NFL, and then they always bring in somewhat better guys, which is crazy to think about, right? That being said, LSU can get to the playoff. Again, it's really going to depend on the quarterback, Harris. They have some talent at wide receiver. Leonard Fournette is a potential Heisman Trophy candidate as a sophomore. So I'm picking LSU big. Texas Notre Dame is probably any two programs you can pick that are going to play out this weekend. No two programs head-to-head have more history in terms of their separate history. Texas's history, Notre Dame's history, the traditions that they carry. They're playing it at Notre Dame. It's going to be on NBC at 7:30 Eastern. Notre Dame just have Malik Zaire as their quarterback. And again, people are also picking Notre Dame to come out to get to the college football playoff. They are a dark horse, in my opinion. It's going to depend on how Zaire plays, in my opinion. I think if Zaire can play to the level that Brian Kelly thinks that he can play, because he's more of a running quarterback. He's more of the guy that can play like a quarterback, but can also run really well, whereas Golson was more of a pocket passer. Texas, again, a lot of questions. People are picking them as a really, really, really dark horse to come out of the Big 12. Charlie Strong's second season as coach, so that means his talent's probably going to develop a little bit better now that the freshmen that he recruited are now redshirt freshmen or sophomores. I like that Texas defense. I like this game close. It has Notre Dame as a 9.5-point favorite, and I do like Notre Dame to come out on top. Eastern Washington and Oregon. Live from Eugene, Oregon, out at Autzen Stadium. It's going to be interesting because, again, Eastern Washington, their former quarterback, Vernon Adams, is now Oregon's starting quarterback. The graduate transfer had just needed one math class and had taken it a couple times to get over to Oregon. It's crazy. If he had failed it, he wouldn't have been able to play. So imagine that one class is the reason why he's at Oregon instead of at Eastern Washington. So that being said, Oregon's the 7th-ranked team in the country. They're the highest-ranked team, I believe, or second highest out of the Pac-12. It really is going to depend on Oregon, on Vernon Adams, and if he can play to the level that he played at Eastern Washington. Again, moving from FCS to FBS is a big jump. I think people are not, I guess they're not as, for me it's a big jump. I think people may not see it to be a big deal. That being said, for me, Oregon is going to win this game pretty easily. I like their offense. For me, their defense is going to be a little suspect early. I don't know who's going to be replaced in the secondary. They have a lot of replacements to take care of, but if Vernon Adams can be really good and have a healthy offensive line, which Oregon didn't last season, then they have a good shot of coming out of the Pac-12. Probably also a really good game, in my opinion, Wisconsin-Alabama. That's going to be on at 8 p.m. Eastern on ABC down at the AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. Alabama's a 2-touchdown favorite. Number 20, Wisconsin. They're going to replace Melvin Gordon. That should be interesting. And for Alabama, they're replacing their quarterback. For me, Alabama, they're ranked a little higher just because of their questions at quarterback. But since Nick Saban has taken over, quarterback play has been, it needs to be efficient. It doesn't need to be great, which is probably maybe why people have picked him so high. For Wisconsin, again, they're going to have to play a really, really good game. Overall, I know Wisconsin fans can travel well, so do Alabama fans. I do like Alabama to win. It's going to be an ugly one, and it's going to be close. Texas State and Florida State live on ESPN Network. Florida State has a new quarterback And of course, his name is Everett Golson. Why does that name sound familiar to you? It's because he used to be the quarterback at Notre Dame. Malik Zaire took over late for Golson last season, and then Golson decided to transfer as a graduate transfer as well, and won the starting job. Now, Florida State is a 30-point favorite to win this game, so easily picking Florida State down at Doak Campbell Stadium. Arkansas State and USC. Should be interesting. USC is also another potential favorite to come out of the Pac-12. One of the reasons why is because Cody Kessler is back at quarterback. Their weapons on the outside are always talented. I think that they still need to build up a little bit more in terms of depth on their roster after going under that NCAA sanction a couple of years ago, and it's now being lifted, and so now they're starting to get those recruits back and starting to develop some depth on that roster. That being said, again, USC, if Cody Kessler can play well in big games, which he didn't last season, if you look at his numbers when he was against really bad teams, they were great. Against really good teams, they were average to poor at best, or poor to average at best. And, of course, USC is USC now. Now that Steve Sarkisian is back. Steve Sarkisian had a little bit of issues just a couple weeks ago with what he said while he was intoxicated. But for USC, I think that's not going to be an issue. They're going to brush that off. I do like them big in this game. And finally, number 1 Ohio State against Virginia Tech down at Lane Stadium in Blacksburg, Virginia. Ohio State is the overall favorite. One of the biggest questions, of course, is their quarterback. Who is it going to be? Is it going to be Cardale Jones or is it going to be JT Barrett? We know Braxton Miller is now out at wide receiver for the Buckeyes. So who's going to be? For me, my opinion, I could see. I like Cardale Jones, not just because he won those 3 games, which again they were huge. They're the reason why they won the national championship. But I like his size. At 6'6", 250 pounds, he could chuck it deep. Again, JT Barrett, according to Kirk Herbstreit from ESPN, he has that it factor. For me, I can see them rotating both in this game against Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech has a great defense. Kendall Fuller, again, he had a couple of brothers come through Virginia Tech, and they were really good defensive studs. He's another one in that line of Fullers. So I like this Virginia Tech defense, and of course, down in Blacksburg, they know how to rile up the crowd. So it's going to be a close game. Again, I think it's going to be closer than 14 points, as said. But I'm not sure about their Virginia Tech's offense play. I like their running game. I'm not sure about their quarterback play. So Ohio State, in a closer game, they're going to win. But it's in a closer game. So, of course, from there I have to pick my top 4 teams that are going to come out and represent the college football playoff. Now, of course, with those 4, 1 or maybe 2 conferences could be left out for me. I can only see 1, and that, in my opinion, is going to be the ACC. Florida State, Clemson, Georgia Tech. Those are the 3 potential best teams in the ACC this season. For me, Florida State, again, while they have still a lot of talent still left, I think there are a lot of questions with Everett Golson. Can he replicate that freshman season where he led them to the national championship game? My answer is no. I think that Golson's still going to continue to make a lot of the mistakes that he made last season. For Clemson, same as well. I don't like their depth, and I don't like Georgia Tech's style of how they play. Don't get me wrong, it's great to get to 8, 9 win, 10 wins possibly, but to compete in this type of atmosphere in terms of competing to get to the college football playoff, I just do not see it happening. So that means, of course, we do have the SEC, we have the Pac-12, we have the Big Ten. Okay, so Big Ten, Big 12, Pac-12, SEC. So, without further ado, let's go with the top 4. So number 1, again, going from number 1 to number 4 seed, I like my number 1 seed to be Ohio State. Looking at their schedule, I think top to bottom, they're favorites in every game, by far. I mean, look at their game. They play at Virginia Tech. They're again at home against Hawaii, at home against Northern Illinois, Western Michigan. Then they have trips to Indiana and at home against Maryland, Penn State, Rutgers, Minnesota, Illinois. Their tough games against going to be against Michigan State. That's going to be a grinded out game, and Michigan to close out. Michigan did lose at Utah last night. It was not good for their quarterback play overall. Again, I knew Utah was going to win, but the score really didn't indicate how dominant Utah was last night. And with that being said, I do like Ohio State just to run the table, go undefeated into the play and into the college playoff play. Number two, my number 2 seed is going to be Oregon. A lot of people are saying, of course, I'm sure they're thinking, Sam, you're picking a homer pick. I mean, I live in Oregon. Don't get me wrong. So, I mean, the only benefit is that it's given me a lot of time to look at the Ducks all around. I mean, I like their schedule. I mean, it's going to be tough early against Michigan State. Again, last season, that was a grinded-out game. As mentioned previously, it's really going to depend on Vernon Adams and how well he can play. If Vernon Adams can be half or maybe 3/4 as good as Marcus Mariota is, they're not asking him to be Mariota. Mariota last season had to carry the team to the national championship game just because of a banged-up offensive line. Their secondary was a little suspect early on in the season, and he was the guy that had to will his way for some yards. He's the reason probably they won against Michigan State at home. He's the reason that they won against Florida State in the college football semifinal. Of course, he came up short against Ohio State, but look, that Ohio State team, once they got Cardale Jones in, that Big Ten championship game, they just destroyed Wisconsin. They destroyed Alabama in the second half, and they just ran all over. Ezekiel Elliott was fantastic. I mean, he's a Heisman candidate as well. But you look at the rest of the schedule after Eastern Washington and Michigan State. I mean, look at that. It's relatively easy. Georgia State, Utah, Colorado, Washington State, Washington. At Arizona State may be a little bit tricky, but I still see them coming out on top. Against Cal, at Stanford, they have USC at home, and then against Oregon State in the Civil War game. For me, again, Oregon's going to be the team to beat out of the Pac-12. Again, I like UCLA, I like Rosen, but I don't like it that much in his first season. I think Cody Kessler, while he's going to be good, I don't think he's going to be great to carry USC, and I think the lack of depth on that roster for USC is going to be huge, and I think they're going to fall short because they don't have a lot of depth. So for me, Oregon would be my number 2 seed coming out of the Pac-12. My number 3 seed would be out of the SEC, and that's going to be Auburn. I like Auburn's schedule as well. I like the way that they're set up. I like the defense, again, coached by Will Muschamp, again, former Florida coach. And, I mean, if you look at what they have, I mean, I think they're going to trip up on some games. Don't get me wrong. I think they will. They have Louisville. They have Jacksonville State at LSU, which they may lose to. I could see, again, very people go down to LSU and win. So let's put a loss there. Arkansas, that's going to be tough against Ole Miss at home. And then they have Alabama at home in the Iron Bowl. I think Auburn, in my opinion, is going to come out with at least two, I would say at least a loss, maybe 2. But I think this is the season where everything is completely wide open. So, I mean, I think a 2-loss team is going to come out of the SEC and is going to get to the college football playoff, just because all these teams are just going to beat the crap out of each other. I don't see a definitive top-of-the-line QB out of the SEC at all. But in terms of what Auburn has overall, I like their schedule best. People are saying, why aren't you picking Alabama? They're usually the potential favorite. For me, I could see them losing more than 2 games. I could see them losing against Wisconsin in the opener. I could see them losing at Georgia, who people have picked early. I could see them tripping up at home against Tennessee. I could see them tripping up at Auburn. So realistically speaking, yeah, I don't see. I think struggles a quarterback, and I think this is the